It is perhaps the most sacred site in all of humanity. The place where three of the world's most prominent religions, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, all converge. It is the heart and soul of what is called the Holy Land. Temple Mount, Old City, Jerusalem. And this 35-acre plateau, surrounded by ancient walls, has been considered sacred for thousands of years.
The Temple Mount is sacred to Jews and Christians because it's at this spot that Abraham bound Isaac and prepared to sacrifice him in Genesis 22. For Muslims, this site is sacred because it's from the rock, where the Dome of the Rock today stands, that Muhammad ascended into heaven.
What we have on the Temple Mount really is a mixture of three religions, and each one of them has got an aspect to it which makes the place even more important. But in origin, really what we have is a place where God touched down on planet Earth. And ever after, this is the place where communications with the afterlife or the divine realm is to be made.
Each year, millions of pilgrims come to Temple Mount to worship God and celebrate holy occasions. But why? In the 10th century BC, King David and the Israelites chose this rocky high ground to build a great temple.
This was the site that David, the great king of Israel, had conquered. And so it already had a kind of a blessing about it, because this was where the people of Israel were destined to center their lives in this sacred kind of place.
According to the Bible, King David, who had just made Jerusalem his capital, wanted to build in it a house for the Lord. But for reasons that aren't entirely clear, he didn't do so, and it was his son Solomon who built the first Jewish temple.
Completed in 957 BC by David's son, King Solomon, the temple was said to house the Ark of the Covenant. The sacred chest, believed to have contained the stone tablets on which the 10 Commandments were written. But according to many ancient astronaut theorists, the Ark also may have contained a power source of extraterrestrial origin.
In the Bible, you read about the Ark of the Covenant. Moses was ordered to go to the Holy Mountain, and the Lord gave Moses instruction to construct the Ark of the Covenant. As we know later, the Ark of the Covenant was something very, very dangerous.
Solomon installed it in the temple, and it served as the focal point of the temple in its innermost room, the Holy of Holies, into which only the chief priest, the high priest, could go.
It's in this innermost sanctum, the Holy of Holies, where God was viewed as resident. So in a sense, the Ark of the Covenant was God's throne in the Holy of Holies, and the place where God reigned from Jerusalem.
According to the Talmud, a central text of Judaism, King Solomon possessed a magic ring with a special symbol called the Seal of Solomon, today known as the Star of David.
This special ring would allow him to accomplish things beyond what mortals could usually accomplish. And part of what he could do with that ring, with the seal on it, was control the demons. And that gave him a kind of power and an ability in the construction of that temple that others would never have had.
According to Islamic text, King Solomon also had a magic carpet of green silk, sufficient for his throne and all his forces to stand on.
Now, magic carpets, do they exist? Of course not. So what was it that our ancestors tried to describe in those stories?
So where was he getting these strange powers? Was he really in contact with extraterrestrials who had literally given him a spacecraft to fly around in?
After studying the intricate geometry and design of Solomon's temple, even Sir Isaac Newton questioned if the king had built the temple with secret knowledge.
It was very highly advanced architecturally, catching certain kinds of light, being very precise in its astronomical alignment. And the question for modern scholars and architects is, what was the level of technology available to King Solomon that allowed him to design and lay out the temple according to these principles?
There's a text, as a matter of fact, called the Testament of Solomon that suggests that Solomon didn't only use mortal builders and architects, but he brought in demons. He forced them to do some of the labor because demons are especially strong.
Might an advanced energy source within the Ark of the Covenant have allowed King Solomon to wield immense power? And might that power have had an extraterrestrial origin?